Tonight on Candy with Leah, we are making candied jalapenos, which is why I'm wearing rubber gloves. Anytime that I deal with my jalapenos, I like to wear rubber gloves because I've done them without that and I pay for it the next couple of days with my hands burning. So you might be wondering with candied jalapenos, first, are they hot? Not really, but they do certainly have some heat to them depending on how hot the jalapenos themselves are. So it's always kind of like Russian roulette. You never know what you're going to get. Also, to estimate, I'm probably slicing them like 1/4 of an inch thick. So basically, you're just going to go through the whole bowl of jalapenos and slice them up. And then when you get to the end too, you can keep that. That's all perfectly good and edible. You don't have to toss that out. So literally the only thing that I'm tossing out is the stem off of the jalapeno. So just gonna keep slicing away. All right, I just finished slicing up all of the jalapenos here. So in a large pot, I've gone ahead and put 6 cups of sugar and 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 1/2 of a teaspoon of turmeric, and 1/2 of a teaspoon of celery seed. And then 3 teaspoons of the minced garlic. I cheat and I just buy it already minced because that helps speed things along for me. And then also just a pinch of red pepper flakes. So now we're going to go ahead and bring that all to a boil here in the pot. And then I'll just keep stirring it so that the sugar gets dissolved. And then, so once I bring it to a boil, I need to lower the heat and simmer it for about 4 minutes. Now after simmering it for 4 minutes, I brought it back up to a rolling boil. And now is the time where we're gonna go ahead and add the jalapenos to it very, very carefully. So I suggest taking the bowl and leaning it away from you toward the pot so that it doesn't come back and splash at you. So when you first put it in there, the jalapenos are not going to be covered by the syrup that was in there. So that's going to change pretty quickly though, because we're going to go ahead and just keep boiling this now at a high boil. We have to actually return this back to a rolling boil. And while you're doing that, your jalapenos are going to start to cook down, and that syrup in there is going to go ahead and start to cover all of the jalapenos. So it's just a process that happens when you bring it all back to a rolling boil. So once I added the jalapenos to the pot, I brought them to a hard boil where it was aggressively boiling. And then I lowered it down to a simmer and simmered it for 4 minutes. And now that they've been simmering for 4 minutes, I went ahead and brought them back up to a boil and turned it off. And so now what I'm going to do is take the jalapenos out and put them into my sterilized jars with a slotted spoon so that they're not bringing any of the syrup with them at this time, because we're going to boil that syrup a little bit longer and try in order to thicken it up a little bit. So in the meantime, we're just going to pack the jalapenos into our jars, leaving about 1/2 of an inch of headspace. And then now that I have all of the jars packed with the jalapenos, we're bringing the syrup that was left in the kettle to a boil, and it's literally being brought to like a hard boil. You want to boil that for about 6 to 8 minutes so that so it thickens up into like a nice syrup, because then we're going to pour that into the jars with the jalapenos. And now I'm done boiling the syrup. It's thickened up pretty nicely. So I'm just going to very carefully ladle it into the jars. I'm going to actually set it down and ladle it because you don't want that touching your hand because it's some pretty hot syrup right now. So just fill it into the jars until they're about, I give them about a 1/2 inch or so of headspace. So now I have all of the jars filled with the syrup, and then I've gone ahead and wiped all of the rims clean with a wet paper towel. And so now I'm just going to go ahead and put all the lids on the jars. And then once I have the lids on, then we'll go ahead and put the rings on as well. And now that I have all the lids and the rings put on the jar, I'm going to go ahead and process them in a hot water bath. And for half pints, which is what I was using tonight, you process those for 10 minutes. So you start counting the 10 minutes once the water is boiling. Otherwise, for full pints, it would be for 15 minutes. One other thing that I wanted to mention was that I actually did have about a quart of the syrup left in the kettle here. And I don't like for that to go completely to waste, of course, because there's a lot of sugar in there. So what you can do is actually put it in your refrigerator, and it should stay good in there for about a week or so. And I'm going to use it as a glaze when I cook meat over the next week here. So, all right, and so now we're done processing for 10 minutes, and now we've got some lovely candied jalapenos. We're going to set them over here and just listen to them seal. Thanks for joining me again, and make sure to like this video and subscribe to Candy with Leah. Have a good night.